episode of the On the Mic podcast. And although this is normally a sports and an MMA and a UFC podcast, stepped way out of my comfort zone and super honored and delighted to talk to my guest today, someone who I'm a huge fan of. And we're going to go many directions today because you guys know I don't have the biggest eating palate in the world. So maybe there's someone out there who can help me. And if you know anything about me, you know I enjoy a good beer, a good drink, which means I love going to bars. And when I discovered way after the fact, I discovered Bar Rescue. I discovered Chef Brian Duffy. Sir, how are you?
I'm absolutely wonderful, man. I'm super stoked to talk to you guys. And we do have one thing in common because we both love UFC.
Beautiful.
And actually, Clay Guida is a good buddy of mine.
That's awesome. His wrestling coach is right down about 20 minutes from me. So, yeah.
So where do you live?
I'm right outside of Chicago. So
what part?
Like Schaumburg area.
Okay, yeah. So I did 6 restaurants in Rockford, Illinois, and the surrounding area.
That's awesome. That is absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
but,
I'm gonna have to get those restaurants, and I'm gonna have to go check them out when this is over.
They still have some of my food. I'll let you know when I come back out that way.
Yeah, absolutely. So my first big thing is, this is more like a challenge to myself. I've never really talked to anybody in this industry, but it's always something I'd love to do. And, not to talk about any controversial people, but point of this podcast is to hopefully one day for me to be like the guy in the UFC, Joe Rogan, who can talk to anybody and everybody. I'm a guy who was a late bloomer into Bar Rescue. That's obviously how I got to know you. And for someone, like I said, when I was introducing you, I have a very, very small palate. So people are like, why are you going to talk to a chef? Like, what are you going to ask them? So I have food questions for you, but more so going into your career. I mean, to have 2 careers at once, right? You're a chef and you're there with John Taffer to do your thing and help turn a restaurant or a bar around, while perfecting your craft as a chef. What was that like balancing 2 different careers almost at once?
Well, first I have about 19 different careers. Being in this industry and kind of being in the world that we're in right now, I think one of the biggest things for me is that, I try to be as diversified as I possibly can. So during that time frame, it's kind of weird. I was the corporate executive chef for 17 different restaurants. So I oversaw within a restaurant group 17 restaurants, 4 different concepts. So that was like my gig. When I started to do Bar Rescue, I had left the industry and I went into a development stage where I was developing products for a seafood company for every major grocery store chain in the world. So I basically left, the chef jacket and the day-to-day operation to see what it was like to have a product that was in your brain make it to the shelf and how it gets there. So for me, that was a really cool point. And then I left that job after a year, and then I started doing Bar Rescue full-time, and I started consulting full-time. So it was like all of these different levels of being in a kitchen led me into different worlds where now I own restaurants. I have a consulting firm. I'm a part owner of a company out of LA with my brothers called World Chef. I have a podcast. I have all sorts of stuff. I'm an advisor on 7 different boards for 7 different companies, everything from a pretty amazing app that connects people through drinking all the way up to I'm an advisor on a cookie company out of Alaska. So I kind of have my hands in a whole bunch of different areas, a lot of it being experiential, and then that other angle of it being really food driven. So during that time, I honestly, I didn't even know what was happening. It was like, hey, would you, any chance you can be on this show? It's with this guy who yells at people. He's the way that he was explained to me was that he was a very, very dynamic individual who knew more about bars and restaurants than anybody out there. So for me, that was a no-brainer to hop into the show at that point. So that was kind of what I did. But the multi-level career thing, man, I've done that my whole life. I've always had irons and fires. I've always had concepts. I mean, I own so many websites just from different ideas that I have all the time that my assistant and I just went through the other day, and I was like, all right, we're never using that one. That's not going to go anywhere. So that's to me, if I didn't have multi things, I'd be bored as shit.
I love that. Honestly, I love that. As someone who's tried to balance this podcast career with somewhat of a writing career on the side, but also having to work a 9 to 5 to pay bills, like I absolutely hear that. So I guess I would ask you, because I think the answer for me is easy. It's this podcast. But what is the most fulfilling of your 27 careers that you have? What is the most fulfilling, or is it just having success in each and every one of them?
Honestly, you know what? Right now, I mean, restaurants are super fulfilling on so many levels. They also kind of rip your soul apart in so many ways. But for me, like I have quality guests that come into the restaurant, and when we have a great night, I mean, look, I'll tell you honestly, the other night, Friday night, we had a horrible night in the restaurant. One of my guys came in, he wasn't on his game, he was in a really bad mood. I could tell it. The night just went downhill from there. It was just a really uncomfortable night to be in a kitchen. So that mindset changes so much of it. So Saturday when I got in, I went in super early. I got my guys set up. I set their stations up. We were all ready for service. And then right before service, my guy walks in again, and you could tell he was in a bad mood. And I stopped everybody. I pulled everybody into the kitchen. We did breathing exercises, a 4-part breathing. We did yoga in the middle of the kitchen. And it was one of the more successful nights that we've had, to the point that I'm going to introduce that into a lot of my kitchens now, because it's just a great way to release negative energy, get rid of some of the shit. So fulfilling, that was uber fulfilling on Saturday night. On other levels, this new company that I'm involved in with my brothers called World Chef, which is a shoppable foodie marketplace. It's basically like having Food Network directly in front of you, but you have the control over it, and it's totally real chefs. No bullshit, no lying, no fake accents, no nothing. It's just totally real, straightforward. So to me, 10 conference calls a day, building this company for the last year and a half, almost 2 years, with my brothers, my family, and a series of amazing people. That is the most fulfilling thing that I have going on right now.
I absolutely love that. I know the joys of being able to work with not only family, but something that you really can put your own touch on, and it's all your thing, and it's nobody else is getting involved. So I have tons of respect for you already, even more so now. I've got everything in my notes here about everything that I want to ask you, but I got to say I worked at a few restaurants and bars, never really got deep into it, but I've seen a little bit of the ins and outs. But my uncle was a chef, and so I had to call him up before, even having this interview with you. And I said, awesome, I need that one. I think I can do an okay job as a podcast host, but I had that from a chef's perspective. So I got to ask, what are the 5 ingredients you always have in your fridge?
Don't even go into my refrigerator, brother. That is a nasty place to hang out, especially at my home, because I've got, I have 2 girls. My daughters are 21 and 18. My girlfriend lives with me. She's in and out of the house all the time. It's like, so my refrigerator looks like, it honestly kind of looks like a healthy person or a fat person's trying to be healthy. If we can do it that way, there's a lot of to go, because everybody takes food from the restaurant and brings it home.
Right.
So there's always like containers of my food in the refrigerator, but nothing off of my menu, because my girls, are always bringing food home that's not on the menu because I'm making them something. In my refrigerator, okay, let's back up. So I wouldn't even go as far as the refrigerator. I would kind of say 5 things that I have in my kitchen at all times. Well, one, I have 7 different types of salt.
Okay.
Not one of them is iodized. Let me just let that be known right off the bat. I do not use iodized salt in any way whatsoever. It's a chemically enhanced product that pisses me off, and it leaves a shitty, tinny taste on your tongue. So stop using iodized salt, everybody.
No.
So salt is definitely key. 2, fresh black pepper. I always have fresh black peppercorns in a pepper mill or in a grinder. It's a given for me at any given moment. Garlic is always in my refrigerator, no matter what. I love the flavor of garlic, no matter how it's done, whether it's
Right.
roasted for 2 hours or if it's just chopped up and thrown in, with an omelet in the morning. So that's like a definite for me. I'm trying to think of a couple of other things that I always have around. In my refrigerator, I always, no matter what, in fact, I'm driving right now to go to a local house around me that has chickens because I'm going to get eggs off of their front porch.
Okay.
So I always have a good farm fresh egg. I don't believe in commodity based. It's a mild version of what an egg actually tastes like.
Right.
When you have a good quality farmed egg, there's nothing like it. That richness of that yolk, that creaminess of that white, that's so stupid and so simple. That is an always given for me. I always have great eggs in my refrigerator. And then the other one is any form of like a good quality olive oil, which just kind of finishes or rounds out some of the stuff that I have. So what do I have? Salt, pepper, eggs, garlic, and yeah. And then I have but even my salt world's a whole different world because I always have an Alderwood smoked salt. I've got a Maldon smoked salt. I've got a Maldon sea salt. I've got a Celtic mineral salt. So it's like each salt has its own play within a preparation of the meal. I could probably use 3 to 4 different types of salt in one meal.
I absolutely love that. So as I was mentioning when we first started this, I very small palate. I don't eat a lot of things. Like I always joke around.
No, hold on. It's not that you have a small palate. It's that you haven't given it a chance to exercise yet.
So you're gonna. So this question is gonna be thrown out the window because I was gonna ask you for. I mean, I've tried things. A lot of things I just can't stomach them. So okay. For me, I always joke.
What can't you stomach?
Pretty much seafood and anything that's found in a salad, basically. Onions, lettuce, tomato. Yeah.
Okay.
So
on the
really
seafood level. Well, go ahead. I'm interrupting you.
I'm really more so like a meat and potatoes kind of guy. It's how I joke around with everybody. When I've gone out on dates, I'm like, that's what I can eat. I can do meat, I can do potatoes, and I can do pasta. And I'm like, I don't really like it. Yeah, we can go places, but I don't have much to offer in terms of what I'm going to eat. If you want to go to a seafood restaurant, I'll find something, I guess. But my question to you from a chef's perspective is, I know part of it would be to just expand and try these things. But when I haven't been able to stomach them, what would your advice be on how I can grow within what I can kind of stomach?
Try it a different way.
Okay.
It's that simple. My children, my girls are unbelievable eaters. Our world is usually spent discussing whether we're having ramen or pho or sushi for dinner. So like those are classics for us. With almost everything we do, those are classics for us. Hold on, I gotta move over. I gotta get it behind a slow poke. My world with that is really, I would say to my girls, okay, you didn't like spinach today, but try it today. You didn't like the spinach yesterday, so I want you to try this today. So I always tried a couple of different kind of recipes, shall we say, for spinach and stuff like that, which opened up my girls' worlds to being able to try new foods, taste different things, that now my girls love spinach.
I love that.
So I always say to people, you may not have liked it the way that your mother made it, but you might like it the way that I'm about to make it.
Right. That makes total sense.
So I always say that, like, especially when it comes to mushrooms, you probably can't even fathom putting a mushroom into your body.
No, not even close.
Right. Exactly. It probably sounds like shit, just the thought of it, thinking of you putting a spore inside of your body. But if you try different mushrooms and different methods of doing them, it's a whole different experience. So I always say to people, just try it a couple different times, a couple different ways, and you never know, you might find something that you like.
Yeah, I love that. Now, as an avid bar goer, my other side of this, one of the things, because I want to give you an opportunity to kind of talk about the things that you have going on. I know you just mentioned them earlier, but I want to really give you a platform to advertise them and market them. As an avid bar goer, I don't do like high classy, like like restaurants or anything like that. I'm a sports bar kind of guy. I'm a guy that, you know, I would have hoped to have walked in an episode of Bar Rescue, because those are a lot of the bars I visit. Now, I understand some things, like when I'm paying $2 for a Miller Lite tall boy and the pizza comes out and you could tell it's Tombstone frozen pizza. I understand that shitty level of kitchen work. But when you go to a sports bar, when I go to a sports bar and they market themselves to be the best sports bar around with the best food in town, what is the number one thing you tell guests who go to a sports bar to be wary of, whether it be from the, you know, the kitchen side or just the overall sports bar atmosphere side?
What are things that I tell guests in that case?
Yeah.
You know, it all comes to your judgment, man. Right off the bat, if you walk in and the first thing you smell is a fryer, you got a problem. You know, it's just that simple. Not only that, the thing that I see with most sports bars these days is everybody serves the same food.
Yep.
It's all the same shit out of the same box from the same purveyor. There's not enough people out there. There's not enough guests out there that are saying, I don't want this. I don't want this. I don't want this nasty ass chicken finger that all of you are serving to me. So you have to change your guests' minds. You have to change the way that they think. You know, in the case of people coming in who are just like, I want a shitty wing, change their mind by offering a better version of a wing. But if they are coming in, you know, most people end up giving a restaurant 3 chances and then they kind of roll out. 3 if you're lucky. If you're really, really lucky, you'll get them in 3 times. First time they'll say, it was okay, the atmosphere was good, I'll try them again. Second time they'll come in, they'll be like, you know what, the server was rude, but I had great food today. And then the third time they're going to come in and they're going to be like, you know what, the first time the food sucked, second time the service sucked, this time the whole place sucks. So for me, it's like, I don't really warn people about stuff, but I say to people all the time, if you leave a restaurant, you feel like shit, you need to have a conversation with somebody. Either you overate or the food did that to you. So I always check that world, 1. 2, raise the standards, man. Raise the standards for the product that's coming out of these places. I got a place right near me. It's called the Rusty Nail. Awesome, awesome, awesome bar. Live music, dirty, grungy, dark. You kind of question why you're going in there in the first place. But he does pizzas a couple of days a week. And they're like frozen little pizzas. But that's what your expectation is when you get in there. Right. So if you walk into a place with super high expectations, then you're going to be completely let down. But if you go into a place and say, it's a corner dive bar, they probably don't have the greatest food, but let me see what they have and give it a shot. Smell it, look around, and then try it. Lower your expectations on some things, because if you're a guy who goes to, you know, that's really not even there, Le Bernardin in New York, you're going to hate any dive bar that I walk into. So lower your expectations in something. But I'm saying lower your expectations in what your comparisons are. I can't compare Bob's Bar and Grill to Le Bernardin. It's not going to happen. Right. You know?
Well, I got to make that. I got to give you guys a credit, and I don't know, a little bit of blame. And once I got hooked on the Bar Rescue, I was going in, watching how bartenders were pouring. I was checking certain things from like how the food was being prepared. Was it like things that you guys opened up my mind to, that like for like a month straight, my friends were like, we're not going out with you, dude. You're like auditioning for this show. They're like, Chef Brian Duffy and John Taffer are not walking through that door. So you're not like some undercover Bar Rescue guy. But there were bars that after I started watching the show, I was just walking out of. I'm like, I'm good. Yeah. I'm good. I don't need this. But I would have never done that if I didn't start watching the show. And that's what led me out and to reach out to you. And here we are. But, you know, and one thing in my research, I know you talk about, you know, challenging and guests speaking up. I don't know how it came about for you, but you have a new Celtic background with food. How did that get started for you? And what was the thing that opened you to be like, I've got to take what people already know, put my own spin on it, and reinvent it?
Well, so the world of New Celtic, first off, when you walk into a place and you're questioning what a bartender is doing, in reality, it doesn't have as much to do with the bartender as it does the owner of the operation.
Right.
It's that simple. You know, I mean, it's like me and my staff, I'm constantly coaching how we answer the phone, how we talk to guests when they walk in, how we talk to them when they leave, how we're going, what our communication is with them in the restaurant. I offer up opportunities. How is everything? Is there anything I can do for you guys? So like we're uber sensitive to all of that with the way that we work with our guests and our staff in appearance, in presentation, in execution, how it all comes together. So
I think I might have lost you here.
you got me? You still there?
Yeah, I lost you here for a minute, but we got you back now.
There we go. So what was that? Ask your question again.
Just it's more of a like about New Celtic and how it all came about for you.
So it really kind of came to because I was, you know, I mean, I was a chef. Hold on one second.
Yeah.
Hey, real quick on the podcast, do you need my video? Because I got to plug in.
No, that's fine.
Okay, good. Julio, let me just do this.
Yeah,
real
not
quick.
a problem.
The big thing with New Celtic was I had two gentlemen who reached out to me and asked me, hey, can you, would you be interested in doing our Irish pub? And my initial response,
well, do you guys want corned beef and cabbage on the menu? And they were like, well, no, not really, but maybe St. Patrick's Day or something like that. And that was a deciding factor for me that I would now want to work with these guys because I didn't want to just do what every other person was doing on an Irish pub menu. I wanted to do things that were different. So I created a cuisine called New Celtic, which meant that we were taking this thousands of year old kind of idea of what Irish food was, or the Celtic Isles, which would include Scotland, Isle of Man, England, Wales, Ireland, all of that area. And a lot of people don't realize, number one, is there's a shit ton of seafood, man. It's Irish.
Yeah.
It's an island. It's an island, man. That's what it is. And if you think about it, or Absolutely. In some cases in archipelagos, whatever. But you get my gist with that is like, I wanted to step outside of the box on a lot of these items and do things differently. So we would do like a New Celtic fish and chips, where we would take these beautiful potatoes that we'd slice down, we'd blanch them off, we'd roast them off. I wanted to do things a little bit more healthy in this way, but I also wanted to utilize a lot of the history into the food that we did. So classic herbs, the idea of using marjoram, the idea of using honey, which was a utilization of it was used as a currency back in the Celtic era, and during Viking times. There was a lot of really cool shit that happened during that time that a lot of people just don't even know about. So that was where I came into New Celtic. And it's funny because I worked with this Irish pub called the Shanachie, which in Gaelic meant storyteller. So my first menu was literally written as a book. So each one was a different chapter. Each title, each chapter was done in Gaelic. All of the menu items had Gaelic terminology at the end of them. So I wanted to bring the history of that great food back because all everybody ever thought about was, if you look at Scotland, the two items that they talk about within their cuisine are the boiling process. You ever seen the movie So I Married an Axe Murderer?
I have not.
Okay. One, you need to watch that goddamn movie because it's Mike Myers and it's awesome. But there's this scene and he's Scottish and his mother is sitting in the kitchen talking to her husband, Mike Myers' father, who is also Mike Myers, he's playing the character, sitting in the kitchen, and there's a boiling pot of carrots. And it's just boiling. It's just sitting there boiling away the entire time. And the other product that the Scots talk about is haggis, which is their sausage, more or less. But there's so much more that's involved in that. It's like Philly with cheesesteaks. So I wanted to expand people's minds, and not in like the spiritual way, but in like a comforting, educational way. So I did a lot of old dishes, like a dish called coddle, which is an Irish stew that was typically made with sausages and mutton and stuff like that, old lamb. And I created a seafood coddle. So we utilized shrimp, and we did these really cool like smoked salmon dumplings that went into there. And we utilized a little bit of the Irish sausage with peas and potatoes. And it was really, really a cool dish. So that's kind of the way that New Celtic started to kind of take form, was that way. I actually reached out to Irish chefs all across Ireland, from Neil Cullen to Darina Allen to, there's some pretty amazing chefs that are over there. And one of the best culinary schools in Europe is actually in a little town called Kilkenny. So I did a lot of research. And the funny thing was, I asked all of these chefs, where did Irish food come from? Where is it going? Where is it now? And where is it going? And only one person out of all of those people that I reached out to replied back to me. And it was kind of cool because I got some good insight into what their visions were. So to me, that made New Celtic and the properties that I was involved in a success.
That I absolutely love that. And I'll say, going off of what you just said of reaching out to so many people, that's kind of how I feel like when I reached out to you. I was like, nah, it's probably gets 100 messages. It's not going to see this. I don't really have like the food or the culinary background to be, this isn't a culinary podcast. I was like, we'll see. So I kind of understand when you get that one response. I was elated. I probably called 10 friends of mine. And I was like, this, all that bar rescue stuff is paying off. Look who I'm going to be talking to Chef Brian Duffy. But you mentioned Philadelphia. I got to ask, you said when we first started, you were a UFC fan. Are you a Philly sports fan?
So my problem is that I played weird sports as I was growing up.
Okay.
So I played soccer, I played rugby, and I did like shot put and long jump in track and field. Like those were my sports. So I do love football. I enjoy watching it. I know a couple of guys on the team, which makes it even more fun. But I'm not a huge basketball guy, although I love a live game. Baseball, yeah, I'll go to a game every now and then. Hockey, I love hockey because it's fast paced. I love my Philly teams. I do root for them. I try to support them however I can. But I don't, unfortunately, I travel so much. I don't really get to watch the games a lot. So I just kind of enjoy the camaraderie of being a Phillies fan.
Is there, outside of, you mentioned Clay Guida, is there a current UFC fighter that you enjoy more than most?
No. I love watching Clay fight. And the reason why I love watching him fight is because of his wrestling and grappling background.
Yeah.
And it's, because I was also a wrestler all through middle school and into high school and all that stuff. And I was really good. But I never really got into the grappling aspect of things until Clay was in Philly a couple of weeks ago, and he's like, "Brad, come to my grappling match. It's going to be pretty great." Blah blah blah. And I fell in love with it because it's funny coming from a UFC guy who's like, "Come see my match," and I fully expected that same type of intensity, that aggression, that kind of that tone, that testosterone that I had anticipated being there. But I got into the ring, or let me rephrase that. I got into the arena. I was not on the mat. The first two fights that I watched were women's fights.
Yep.
The first two matches that I watched were women's matches. And the cool part about it is the art of grappling and the history of grappling, and to watch two people go up against each other that are of the same skill set, that respect each other in that same skill set, and they're not beating the shit out of each other. What they're doing is they're utilizing their craft to best manage what's happening. And there were guys, there's times where one guy would have a great takedown and the other guy would walk over and, and he's like right afterwards, give him a big high five.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of cool shit that goes on there. So, that was really cool for me. But Clay's probably one of my favorite because I know him.
Yeah.
I've hung out with him. I've met his father. I've met his family. His father and Clay and I met in Cuba on Guantanamo Bay. So for me, there's a personal relationship there, which is kind of makes me a little biased on watching him fight because I think he's a badass anyway.
Yeah, I know, and he's a great guy, and I absolutely love Clay. So, Chef, before, and I don't want to take up too much more of your time, and I do appreciate you giving me all this time.
My pleasure,
Just
brother.
give
We're
me an
good.
opportunity to kind of talk about all that. I'd be deaf if I'd be tone deaf if I didn't ask you about. You mentioned the app that you've been working on for the last year and a half, 2 years with your brothers. But when you say that time frame, the number one thing you can think about is COVID and the pandemic that's worldwide. What has it been like for you as a chef in this industry that's really changed, probably more than a lot of other industries, having to deal with the pandemic?
People suck.
Yes, I couldn't agree more.
People do. Honestly, most of them are just fucking assholes.
Yep.
You know, and I mean that in a loving, caring way. I always joke around in my kitchen when I'm sarcastic about something. I always finish with said with love. But in a lot of these cases, what happens is, you know, people really, there was a period where people were really nice. And then that niceness changed to almost an entitlement. You know, people just want, we need human interaction. We have to be around other people. It creates skills like communication. It creates a lot of positive energy when we're physically around other people. You know, I went to go see. I went to a concert on Saturday night. I went to go down and see G Love in Philly,
Okay.
and the positive energy that was flowing through that whole space was just it was intoxicating. Plus, the amount of weed that was being smoked was really up there as well. But it was very intoxicating. It was just really everybody was having a great time. Everybody was having fun. There was no agenda for people. They were just doing their thing. The other thing that I learned from pandemic was that I enjoy travel more than I had ever really imagined. I traveled as much as I could during pandemic. Montana, Washington, you know, California, Midwest. I tried to spend as much time as I could in different areas because I wanted to see how other people really truly lived, but on a much lower scale, not the world of abundance that we lived in, where we had more than we could ever imagine. I mean, we're still struggling, dude. You know, I have a hard time getting certain foods in. The price of product is crazy. So I learned a lot about abundance during that time frame and that we have a lot more than we need. So I became more of a minimalist with things that I have in my house. I purged a lot. I got rid of a lot of shit that I just didn't need to hold on to, both mentally, physically, emotionally. It was a really quality time for me. I loved the pandemic, man. I would get in my car at the end of the day of being in the restaurant, and I would just drive for an hour and not see another car during certain periods. And that was calming.
That's so ironic because when the pandemic started, I was living in North Jersey, right outside New York City, like by the Rutherford area. And there would be days where, you know, I was living with family and I was working from home. And I was just kind of worn out because I had been working 2 jobs until the pandemic halted one of them. And there would be times where I wouldn't be working and I'd be like, I'm just going to go for a drive. And I'd drive through, you know, Jersey and I'd make my way past state lines and I'd be in like Northwest New York, but like middle of nowhere country where it's like, wait, I thought 45 minutes the other way is New York City. So to me, that was fascinating. And like you said, like being without no one around, I was like, this is so comforting. This is so relaxing. It's so nice. And it just what you said, it made me appreciate like that time alone and not always having to be on the go and not always have to worry about what this person's doing or that person's doing or what this sports team is doing. I was just like, it's all shut off and I'm just going to drive. So I'm with you on that for sure.
It was just a really really cool time when we all had one common goal for a couple of weeks. The entire world had the same goal. I don't want to get sick and I don't want to get anybody sick.
Yep.
You know, I mean, I'm actually cleaning my hands right now as we speak. I'm putting more sanitizing solution on my hands because, you know, I feel like I want to be clean and I like that.
Without taking up too much more time, I want to give you an opportunity to kind of really talk about just all the things you have going on. I know you said you were a consultant and you had the Duffified Experience Group. I know you've got your podcast. I know you've got Duffified Spice. That's something I need to get my hands on. I'm definitely going to look into getting myself a Duffified shirt as well. I know you got so many things, but with the floor is yours. You know, what do you want everyone to know? Kind of like what you have going on, and and how we can really get behind Chef Brian Duffy.
Well, one, if you you have my assistant's email,
Yeah.
so email her and tell her that you want a spice, and she'll send you spice.
Okay.
All right. Two, you know what I have going on? I've got a great little restaurant in a little suburb of Philadelphia called the Sidebird Kitchen. I partnered up with a friend of mine who owns a brewery and a distillery. So we have brewed and distilled products in the restaurant as well as my food, which is super cool and kind of fun. I have, if everybody wants to go to the website, myworldchef.com, you can go over there and you can check out World Chef and see what it is. It is a shoppable foodie marketplace with creative content that we have where we work with some of the greatest chefs in the world. You know, our lead chefs coming out, or if you're a chef fan, then you know Brooke Williamson and Tiffany Derry and Joe Sasto and Jet Tila and Tim Hollingsworth and Manushka Guerrier and me. You know, Monte Carlo is another chef who's coming out this next week when I'm out there. So we've partnered up with these amazing chefs to create some unbelievable content where a lot of that content is just realistic from their world. You know, we have boxes that you can buy, which you can get my product in your hand, and you can watch a 15-minute video of how I created the dish, how it came to, and then we're going to build the dish together. So my first box is going to be a Philly lobster roll. I'm utilizing a local bakery out of Philadelphia called Lishio's. So that's my split top roll. I partnered with a great company out of Maine called Get Maine Lobster, who has some of the greatest, freshest, and frozen lobster products that I've seen. So we're making this amazing lobster roll that you can buy, and then you can watch me put the dish together. So you'll receive a recipe and you'll receive all the ingredients. You know, the lobster rolls are ready to rock and roll and ready to eat and ready to do their thing. So
that's myworldchef.com, correct?
So that's myworldchef.com. It's actually called World Chef. But if you go to myworldchef.com, you can log in and you can actually sign up to receive the initial stages of the emails. And then we can, you know, then we'll talk to you about the subscription and what's going on with it. It's a $4.99 subscription moving forward, but you have access to some of the greatest chefs in the country. And we also have really cool things that we go with it, like, you know, ways to get great reservations at some of their restaurants and how to buy the products that these chefs use. You know, we work with really cool companies like Get Maine Lobster, who is putting together my lobster roll, which has a cheese sauce that goes over top of it with caramelized onions and chives and red onions. Or you can make Tiffany Derry's, shrimp and chicken gumbo. So it's a really neat platform that if you just go and even follow it on Instagram, which is My World Chef, you'll be able to see some of the really cool content that we're putting together. From there, I have a great little restaurant up in Long Island on Levittown. I'm a consultant and a partner on it. It's called Arcadia Retro. So the whole restaurant is based off of 80s themed. So all of our food has an 80s theme to it, either locally or globally. The music is all 80s. The movies that are played on the TVs, the video games are from the 80s. You know, sometimes I think my partner just lives too much in the 80s, but he loves it and he crushes it and he creates the experience within the four walls that make people want to come back because of the experience that he's given them. So that's a lot of fun for me. I'm looking at a property. You know, I'm just staying busy, man. You know, the best thing to do is follow me on Instagram or Twitter if I want to be rude, or Facebook if I want to talk to old people, or TikTok if I want to talk to young people. So I do all my social media platforms. They're all Chef Brian Duff, or Facebook is Chef Brian Duffy, because for some reason they wouldn't give me my own name.
Well, I'll make sure all your social links will be, in the description of this on YouTube, sure, as well as a link to myworldchef.com. And I encourage everyone to go out there and check them out. But for those around me who maybe, I know you said the Rockford area, what are the names of the restaurants you opened up here?
So I worked with a group of people out there, Matt and Jamie Pendergrass, who are pretty great people. They have 5 or 6 restaurants out there right now. The number one property that they have is called Arrow, and it's called Arrow Ale House. So it's really pretty cool. It's got kind of an arrow motif to it, airplanes and airports and stuff like that. And the food that we created for them was really super fun and very gastropub. So we had a great time putting all that stuff together with them. And then some of the other properties are just little dive bars. Cherry Valley, Pecatonica, I think is one of the names of the locations out there. Byron. So there's a bunch of really cool properties out in that area. Plus, I did a lot of work with Great Lakes Naval Station in North Chicago. We redid their entire inventory program and some of their food program that's over there as well, feeding 12,000 soldiers and sailors a day. Sorry, feeding 12,000 sailors a day. No soldiers on that base. But yeah, I mean, those are some of my projects. I really, kind of share a tremendous amount on social media so that people can get an idea of who we are and what we do. And to me, that's super fun.
Well, Chef, this has really, truly been an honor. And if you're ever in this area, definitely would love to connect with you in person. Really, really had a blast talking to you. And like I said, we'll promote all your stuff, in the interview description here. And, I wasn't sure how I would hold my own, talking in a world that I really don't know much about, but this has been a blast for me. And I can't thank you for making the time for me.
No, brother, you did some great research and pulled out some good information. And I love people that kind of do their due diligence prior to. That's awesome. My world that I live in, I have a podcast as well that's on hiatus right now just because of work and travel and all that stuff. But it was, I had 3 questions. Who are you? What do you do? And how do we get in contact with you? And then from there, it led into an entire conversation. That to me was a great way to go about things. And, 130 episodes in and, at our highest point, we were 22,000 subscribers, whatever it was. We had a lot of fun doing it. I loved putting it together and you did a real nice job, man. I'm stoked to be able to talk to you. Thanks for having me on.
I appreciate it. Chef Brian Duffy, again, we'll post all your socials in the description and myworldchef.com. Chef, thank you so much.
Cheers, brother. Have a great day.